And get started. I'd like to call to order the Clarkdale Town Council meeting on Tuesday, January 24th at 2023 at 3 p.m. in the Clark Memorial Clubhouse. Roll call. Vice Mayor Hunsitter.
Here.
Councilmember Jones.
Here.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Here.
Councilmember Babbitt Pierce.
Present.
And note that Mayor Prudhomme Bauer is here too. We have a quorum. Before we get started, and this is kind of new, I thought I would do this, I thought I should read the Town of Clarkdale vision. It's always on our agenda, but I think it's good to remind us what our vision of this town is about. And this comes from council and staff. The Town of Clarkdale connects our unique history, proximity to the Verde River, and small town charm to a future with a vibrant economy. We cultivate an environment where residents and businesses can thrive, providing services and jobs for our residents and capitalizing upon tourism. We sustainably enhance our infrastructure, support the arts and education, and develop recreational opportunities to create a bright future for our entire community. So that sort of helps sets the stage for what's going to be a busy council meeting today. So first item on our agenda is the general public. This is the time for members of the public may give comment of a general nature. No official action may be taken by the council during this time unless it is to direct staff to look into a matter. Is there anybody who wishes to give public comment? If so, please come to the microphone, state your name and where you're from. Is there anybody online?
No, Mayor, not for comment.
Seeing nobody come forward, I'd like to move on then to our first item, which is reports. All reports from building permit report, magistrate court report, water and wastewater report, police department report, transit report, and the Verde Valley Humane Society reports are included in our packets, and they are online to be viewed. I just want to make note of the graph form we're going to in terms of reporting on all of our departments each month, particularly the police department chief. I like the new graph form for our statistics. They're very helpful. Thank you. And everybody else is doing. We're trying to make sure our reports are coming in sort of the same format, so it's easier for us and more usable for us. So thank you very much. Item 5, board and commission minutes. Those were also included in our packets. Park and Recreation, Design Review Board, and Historic Preservation Commission. So with that, let's move on to our first item today, which is on item number 6. A is Northern Arizona Healthcare's continued commitment to the Verde Valley. And we have Josh Tinkle, who's the interim CEO from Northern Arizona Healthcare, here to do a presentation. Welcome, Josh.
Welcome. Thank you, everybody. Up here?
Yes, you get to come up here and we'll put the...
put me on the hot seat.
That's
Great.
Well,
okay. Thank you all for having us, and absolute honor and pleasure to be your healthcare provider for the Verde Valley and specifically the town of Clarkdale. As many of you probably know and experience, the last, I'm gonna say 2.5 or 3 years have probably been some of the most challenging years for healthcare delivery, not only in our communities, but also across the country. And healthcare is really meeting some challenging times as we move through, and we'll talk a little bit about that and what we're really doing in our continued commitment to the Verde Valley, and some of the evidence that hopefully you're seeing, at least in the last, I think now it's been what, 5 months since I've kind of been sitting in this role. So if you'll go to the next slide. Am I controlling? Can I do it? Oh, I can do it. No, I got it. I can do that. Oh, look at this, guys.
There you go. You get to do your own.
That'll help me a little bit. So just a little bit about us. And one of the three main priorities of our board, and we can talk a little about board composition as well. How much time do I have, Robin? How much time do I have?
Pardon me?
How much time do I have?
Get through your slides and then we'll.
Okay.
Yeah. Just be as judicious
sure.
as possible.
So we're a not-for-profit or tax-exempt healthcare organization. We employ about 3,000 employees across the region, primarily in the Flagstaff and the Verde Valley. And what that really means is all of the revenue that we're able to generate or earn as an organization is reinvested in infrastructure, services, our staff, et cetera. So there's no shareholders, there's no profit sharing that occurs. And our emergency rooms are open to everyone, and quite frankly, our hospitals are open to everyone regardless of their ability to pay. We're the only level 1 trauma center in Northern Arizona. So fun fact, there are 13 level 1 trauma centers in the state of Arizona. 11 of those reside in Maricopa County. So one would say, well, that's because there's so many people there. The reality is it's because there's something called Prop 202 funding, which is gaming revenue that gets divided equally amongst the level 1 trauma centers. We are blessed and fortunate to have one of those in Northern Arizona, in Flagstaff. About 25% of all the patients that we do service are financially disadvantaged. We service a pretty broad region of healthcare, really border to border, but I would say it's about 50,000 square miles, about 700,000 lives. And last year alone, we provided about $125 million in care for patients that would not otherwise be able to afford those services. So I've talked a lot, and Robin's heard this quite frequently. When we talk about our commitment to the Verde Valley, we haven't done the best job over the last 2 or 3 years, and that's not an excuse. We've had challenges in terms of staffing. We've had to try to provide services to the highest level that we can in various areas. We have really had a taxing environment over the last couple of years. But what I think was important is when I started kind of going on this road tour, is really helping understand, well, what does it mean when we're going to provide service to our communities? And there's really 4 levels of healthcare that exist. And so there's primary, secondary, tertiary, and quaternary. And what that really means is primary-based services are services that we really want to have close to your home that you're going to access on a regular basis. Primary care, lab, imaging, therapy, those are OBGYN services. Those are some examples of that. Then when we get to secondary services, that's more like hospitals, emergency rooms, some specialty stuff, medical oncology, orthopedic surgery, stuff like that, that hopefully you're not breaking your arm every day or once a week and you need to come see us every week. Those services we're probably going to travel a little bit further for, but we think that we need those in our communities, probably within 30 or 40 miles, typically. In larger rural and other rural areas, sometimes they'll be as far as 50 or 60 miles. We're pretty disparate across Northern Arizona, but we're pretty fortunate, at least in the Verde Valley Flagstaff area. Usually within 50 or 60 miles, you're going to have secondary services. Then in rural settings, tertiary services are actually really uncommon because tertiary services are level 1 trauma stuff, so open heart surgery, neurosurgery, complex vascular surgery, stuff of that nature. And you usually have to have a pretty big catchment area to get those. We're fortunate, again, in Northern Arizona that we do have a level 1 trauma center in Flagstaff, which means that if you need to have an open heart surgery, you have something really bad vascularly, neurosurgery, really bad accident, you can get to that care pretty quickly. A little fun fact, we talk about people going to Phoenix, and usually tertiary services, you're going to go to a major metropolitan area like Phoenix or Las Vegas or Albuquerque, for example. So we're fortunate enough to have that in Flagstaff. And then really the 4th level of care, which probably not in my timeline or time frame we'll probably ever have, is really quaternary level stuff. There's usually only 1 or 2 of those in the state. We're a little bit bigger, so you think about quaternary services, it's probably like the Mayo, St. Joe's, Banner University Phoenix, Banner University Tucson, like 4 of those in the state. And those are the ones that are doing clinical trial stuff, new oncology type work, transplants, any kind of liver, any kind of replant. There's actually only like 2 places in the state, if any of you lose a digit, hopefully you don't, that you want to go get a replant because there's a lot of microvascular work. And so that's kind of the level of service. And so when we talk about our commitment to the Verde Valley, and what we're talking about the Verde Valley region is really everything kind of Sedona down to Cottonwood, Clarkdale, Jerome, east to Camp Verde is kind of our Verde region. And we're kind of positioned throughout that region. So Sedona, Cottonwood, and then the Camp Verde campus. And here are really all the services that we offer in those areas, and we'll continue to maintain those services and expand services where we need them. And one of the examples of that is I think in February, we have an electrophysiologist coming as part of our cardiac program. So those are people that put in pacemakers, they deal with arrhythmia, stuff like that. A lot of that work right now either has to go to Flagstaff or to Phoenix. And so we've recruited a provider to do that. It really just outlines all of our regional service offerings here. So we have a lot of primary and secondary services in the region. We will continue to have those primary and secondary services in the region. We are not closing the Sedona ED. So I know that was a rumor. I think we've kind of pushed that a little bit. But I think really important for you guys to hear that we will continue to invest and expand our primary and secondary services. Do I think we'll ever invest in tertiary services in the Verde Valley? Maybe, and that's where it's really important to partner with the towns and the cities and the counties, is really for economic growth and development. So if you're going to bring tertiary services like neurosurgery and stuff like that, you need to have larger population bases. And so that could happen at some point in the future. Investing in the Verde Valley, we talk a lot about, there's really two ways that we invest. There's investment in infrastructure and there's investment in service. So from an infrastructure perspective, last year we did about $12 million in long-term enhancements, because when I first started in this presentation, believe it or not, there was a rumor that we were going to sell or close Marcus J. Lawrence or Verde Valley Medical Center. That was a rumor that was occurring. And I can tell you, you don't invest in long-term infrastructure and capital needs in a facility if you're planning on either getting rid of it or closing it. So that's boilers, chillers, what else do we do? Parking lots, stuff of that nature. So that's really on the infrastructure side. And some will say, well, that's a really minuscule comparison to what you're going to invest in Flagstaff with a tertiary center. And we can talk about that if we'd like as well. Actually, on a per patient service or a net per patient, we actually invest more dollars in infrastructure in the Verde Valley than we do anywhere else in our region. And rightfully so. We think the Verde Valley is a growing region. We think it's important to overall healthcare delivery in the region. And so we'll continue to invest in that. And we'll talk a little bit later about the investment that we're making in our level 1 trauma center. So the tertiary services that we provide to the region and why that benefits us here locally in Clarkdale, Cottonwood, and the Verde Valley. And why, when we made that commitment to make that investment, it was also predicated on the fact that we have to continue to invest in the communities we already service. So I just want to put that out there. And then we obviously invest in services too. And services are really what we're talking about on primary and secondary services. I'm pleased to say we've hired 11 primary care providers in the last 12 months. Robin knows this, but we made a commitment about 18 months ago that we were going to expect the same level of quality and service from our medical practice that you would expect anywhere else. And with that, when you start to set some of those standards and expectations, sometimes you lose people. And so we did lose providers over the past probably, I'm going to say 8 months, but we've actually came back to where we were at about 18 months ago, and we're continuing to invest in those providers here in our community. And these are just some of them that we're doing. We've welcomed new providers to the Valley. Obviously a very heavy focus on primary care, because again, that's a service that you're going to access on a very regular basis. I'm pleased to say we did just sign another person for Sedona, a female APP. So we now have 2 internal medicine docs and APP there. Village of Oak Creek is currently full. We're looking for one more provider for Cottonwood to partner with Dr. Estepona. If you've not met him yet, he's amazing. And then we're continuing to try to fill our immediate care. I think we have 2 openings in immediate care, and we've offered 2 more people for Camp Verde for their primary care. So again, continued investment there. You're seeing also, it's not just primary care, it's also secondary based services. So orthopedics, EP, Sedona Emergency Department. I used to have an interventional cardiologist listed on the right side, Dr. Pack, who was supposed to come in February. His wife, and we've interviewed him before, his wife is a infectious disease physician down in the Valley. And so they were going to have a home in Cottonwood and a home in Phoenix. And he ended up finding a job in Phoenix. So he said, don't want to come to Cottonwood. So we're back looking. We have 3 interviews coming for interventional cardiology. We know that's an area that we have a gap right now. And we know that that's impactful to our municipalities and our EMS and first responders. But so far we have a locums person who really provides a bulk majority of coverage Monday through Friday during the day, which is when the bulk of those interventions need to come in, or they come in acutely. And then we have a protocol in place that we can get them to the appropriate place for intervention. I'll quickly go through the frequently asked questions. If there's always a lot of discussion about, well, there's not enough representation on the board, and I don't know if you guys have heard that or not, but really, how do we make decisions? And the reality is, the NIH board's primary responsibility is hiring and firing of the CEO. So that's really their primary responsibility as the CEO doing what the CEO needs to do. It helps with strategic direction and vision, but then the leadership team is really how do we execute that and bringing those, the how are we going to deliver rural healthcare and rural medicine to the area. In my 5 months, I've been working on how do we get more community input and feel more connected to the community, which I think is important as a community delivery system, and how do we structure ourselves in a way that we maintain consistency at a system level, because much like the big delivery systems, if you get a cardiac procedure in the Verde Valley, you want to have the same outcome as if you got it in Flagstaff. You don't want to say, well, if I go to Flagstaff, I'm going to get a better outcome than I get in Verde. And I know we've had that here in the past. I've heard that from our emergency department. About a year and a half ago, we switched to make sure that our emergency providers were the exact same across the organization. So the same ED docs that are taking care of you at the Level Trauma Center are the ones that are rotating down here. So we're trying to increase that clinical quality in those clinical protocols. So we'll want to maintain that standardization at a system level, but how do we get local input? And we're working on that right now. I quickly just put where are all the board of directors. There was a discussion out there that no one lives in our communities. Actually, all but 2 live in our communities. And what's really important is when we think about the NIH board, we're really running in about a $2 billion organization. And so when you run a $2 billion organization, the board of directors really acts as an advisor to the leadership team. And we really need to make sure that we're first and foremost looking competency-based of how we do that. So we look for people who have investment experience, people who have also worked in other large integrated healthcare delivery systems, people who are experts in healthcare quality and standardization, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's our first look of how we fill our board. And then our second look is what's the location. So you'll notice a couple people on there. I'll point one out, is Dr. Charlie Agee, who's the board secretary, who lives in Paradise Valley. Someone would say, well, what the heck does he know about rural medicine? Charlie might not know a lot about rural medicine, but he knows a lot about is how do we deliver clinical care and clinical quality across our system. I'm happy to say this quarter we were just reported, we are the #1 hospital in the state for MRSA infections and #1 hospital in the state for CLABSI infections. So if you get a central line put in, you're not getting an infection in one of our hospitals. That's against Mayo, that's against Banner, and that's all risk adjusted. So some people say, well, that's because they have sicker patients. That's all risk adjusted. That's what you expect to get there's expected infections, believe it or not. In healthcare, we outperform every single other hospital in the state. So that's why we bring people like that on the board, is so we have the expertise, so we can drive that clinical quality and have the best outcomes for you in the event that you would need to access this. Then it's really the leadership team. Our leadership team is going to continue to get more involved in the communities, and I just put that up there so you guys can see. All of our leadership team lives in one of our communities somewhere. And then really, what's our commitment to the community? I've been on a road tour. I think I've probably had, geez, Robin, I don't know how many times I talked to Robin, but I probably had over 100 community meetings, just telling our story, what we're struggling with, what we're doing well with, where we're committed, where we're going. We additionally have patient family advisory councils. We have Verde Valley certificate holders, flag certificate holders. We have community outreach like this. And I think as we kind of get our structure right with advisory boards, I think that will help as well. And then kind of the last topic that gets talked about a lot is how many of you have heard they're investing all this money in Flagstaff so they can take away services in the Verde Valley and make us go to Flagstaff where there are. I've heard it. I don't know about any of you out there. I've heard that.
I must not hang out with the right people. I haven't heard that yet.
It's very prominent. It's very prominent. And the reason I lead with the primary, secondary, and tertiary services is because yes, the investment is happening in Flagstaff because that's where we've built those services a number of years ago. We're really kind of at a crossroads as a healthcare organization. So if you hear it, we don't have to move. We could stay on the campus we're at right now at FMC. However, if we want to continue to stay current with the tertiary level of care that you're going to deliver, neurosurgery, cardiothoracic surgery, et cetera, we have to invest in our infrastructure. We looked at staying at the existing campus. It was at about $1.05 billion to stay on the existing campus, or $850 million to build the greenfield with more ambulatory services and better just better infrastructure and better flow. One of our cardiothoracic surgeons, who's Dr. Ken Fang, he's the chair of transplant surgery at Banner University of Medicine in Phoenix. He's went out and spoke publicly and said, there's a lot of stuff I could do in Flagstaff that I send down to Banner University to have them done because we don't have the infrastructure. So our investment, while it is in Flagstaff, I'll admit that it's inside the Flagstaff city limits, it's an investment in the region. It's our ability to keep that tertiary level of service and be able to recruit and retain staff to a tertiary level of service. As I said, we don't have to do it. Would we shut down tertiary level services overnight? Probably not. But over a time period, it would become harder and harder. I don't know if you guys have been in a patient room lately. We're about 30% undersized of what the code minimum is right now in the state of Arizona for an ICU room, just by a base of time, because patients have gotten larger, more equipment, et cetera, and so the rooms are kind of undersized. But as I mentioned, that does not change our investment in any region that we service, and in fact will enhance our ability to deliver that service across the continuum. So I'm not going to read through all of these, but I think you guys have access to all the slides and decks. But really, that, if you think about it, it's an $850 million investment in the region and those regional services, in addition to the probably $10 or $12 million that we'll invest every year in the Verde Valley. At some point in the Verde Valley, we'll be looking at where can we put an ambulatory surgery center. We don't have that in the Verde Valley. We need that. And what you're going to see, and what I've been talking about a lot, is we as an organization, one, have to build consistency in our leadership team and our strategy, right? And so I think hopefully you're seeing a little bit of that now. And you're going to see some moves of services, right? And why are you seeing those moves? I will give you one example. I won't tell you, we haven't made a decision where we're going to move it yet or not. But if you're an oncology patient, cancer patient, your medical oncology gets done in Cottonwood. If you happen to be a breast patient, it gets done in Sedona. That's where your breast surgeon is. And your radiation oncology is in Sedona, but your infusion's done in Cottonwood. Doesn't make a lot of sense, does it, right? However, what we built is we built breast imaging, breast surgery in Sedona. We've built medical oncology, so in your infusion, in Cottonwood. And our surgical specialties, other than breast, are in Cottonwood. So you could potentially go to Cottonwood for your medical, Sedona for your radiation, back to Cottonwood if it's something else for your infusion, and back to Sedona for your radiation, as an example. So what we will look at is where are those services best done from an adjacency perspective, and where are they best done within the region for the broadest people that we service. So that's just one example. So when if you ever do hear, can you believe they took so-and-so away from us? It's really looking at the region and saying, where do things make sense to go together? Another way to think about that would be as if we had general cardiology in Camp Verde, we had interventional cardiology in Sedona, and we had electrophysiology in Cottonwood. That wouldn't make a whole lot of sense, would it? Because you're probably going to go to the general cardiologist, they're going to say you need intervention and an EP. We want those care teams together. So one, it's easy access for you as the patient or whoever's accessing our service, and two, that they can collaborate closely. So I just want to give you guys that kind of heads up too, as we start to look about that in the region, we'll do that. Next 3 to 5 years, again, continue to invest in provider retention and recruitment and continue to expand our secondary services. We're looking at urology, GI, EP, OBGYN, rheumatology, neurology, really kind of all of those specialties. And we'll continue to try to hire and recruit those. A new one that I heard the other day from the, I don't know what the Verde Valley Chiefs, I think, which is the first responder agencies, is behavioral health. We used to have behavioral health down in the Verde Valley. That was before my time. I think we closed that because they changed some requirements on ligature resistance and stuff like that. I think that's something that we'll have to look at in the future. We're actually looking at what our behavioral health strategies across the system and how we best provide those services. So with that, I'll pause, and as Robin knows, I usually take any question and answer for the best. So pleasure being here.
Let's start. Council members, do you have questions for Josh?
Just one. Primary care providers, do you feel we have enough, or are you still looking to increase more?
I think we need more access. So we're back to where we were at, but I think we need more access across the region. I think the challenge becomes, we haven't decided or defined yet what's the mix of physicians versus advanced practice providers. In some communities, that's a really big deal. Some health systems will go 1 to 6. We've never really even defined that. Right now, what we're doing is who can we get to come? Who can we get to live in the community? And how can we get that access to service? Honestly, probably, and if our chief medical officer or our physician for our medical group are here, they probably say 80% of your primary care needs can probably be taken care of by an advanced practice provider. But there are times where you have, other complex issues going on that we need a physician. I don't know if we have the exact number yet, but I would say, shooting from the hip, I would say that there's probably another 3 or 4 physicians or providers that we'd like to add across the region. I think it's important we hear sometimes too, well, the reason that people are leaving is because they're overworked and you make them see too many patients, et cetera, et cetera. So healthcare is really, really heavily regulated, believe it or not, and in certain areas where it makes sense, and certain areas where it doesn't. So pretty much every healthcare organization across the country has standards for new patient appointments and existing patient appointments, and they call those slots. Most places do 30-minute new patient, 15-minute existing. That doesn't mean that if a patient takes 45 minutes, you don't have the time to do it. It means that's how you kind of schedule it out. At NAH, we do 40 and 20. So we're already kind of above the standard there. And then every physician and provider in the organization and across the country is really regulated by Stark rules and anti-kickback laws. And so we have to look very closely at how many patients and stuff a provider is seeing and how much we pay them. And so we would get in trouble, for example, if I paid, Mayor Robin over there $100,000 and her peers across the country were making 50 for the same amount of patients. So when you hear that, when you talk more detail, if there are questions about that, we do spend a lot of time making sure that we're within fair market value is what it's called. But we do have opportunity, I would say, in optimization of our EMR and how much time people are spending in those charts. I think we all, back in the 90s or early 2000s, we set up EMRs to make healthcare easier and more accessible. And in some ways, I don't think we did that. So great question.
Thank you for the answer. The reason I asked is I just hear a lot of noise that, we have physicians here in the Verde Valley, but they don't take new patients. So it's like, what do we do?
Yeah, and there's one that we've been working on trying to find an occupational medicine provider for like 18 months. So there are certain areas where there's challenges. We even have worked with the mayors and managers meeting to say, okay, well, eventually we want to have an occupational medicine clinic in Flagstaff too. Maybe we can recruit one to Flagstaff and float them down. We haven't had any success there either. So some of it's dependent on finding providers in the specialties. Honestly, the rest of the specialties, besides like neurosurgery has been challenging, GI has been challenging, neurology has been challenging. Primary care we've done really well in, and kind of your like general cardiology, orthopedics. There's some areas that we haven't had a lot of trouble, but certainly some of those we have.
Other questions, comments?
What do you think the challenge is to recruiting new practitioners?
It's multifaceted, and I think it depends on the provider. Housing gets brought up a lot. I think one, availability of housing. I wouldn't say that's the sole factor though. A lot of times trailing spouse. Do we have a job for the trailing spouse? Do we have the economy for that? I don't hear a lot about schools, so I think that's good. I think we have to have good education. I think if I think about providers having this, do you have a good educational system? Do we have good affordable housing? Do we have jobs for their trailing spouse? And quite frankly, for our own staff, a lot of people are 2-income earners, especially in the environment we're in. So is there that economy to be able to support that? And then kind of further down the list is, what's happening in the arts scene, what's happening, what's the community like? I grew up in a small town in the middle of nowhere, Iowa. So I'm used to kind of rural area. But I would say it's a unique person that moves to rural. And I think we're all unique. And I don't say that for any reason other than I grew up in a rural town of 10,000 and my parents still have a farm there. We're not recruiting or obtaining the transplant surgeon who wants to live in Paradise Valley and do complex transplants that fly all over the country. I think what we're trying to accomplish is, I think our old strategy was find physicians who were kind of into career and they'll come here and retire. It's a great place to retire and we'll get some use out of them. I think we're trying to look at all spectrums. How do we get newer families into the community? And how do we make sure that we ingrain them into the community so they're here forever? Don't get me wrong. I mean, some of the older physicians that are in their career are amazing because they've seen a lot and they provide really outstanding care. That being said, we're transitioning very frequently then, because a lot of them, by the time they're coming, they want to stay for 3 years, 5 years, 6 years, maybe 8 if you're lucky. So you're seeing a lot of that. So if we can find more families or new out of practice physicians who are going to be here for a long time, or mid-career physicians, I think that's their best strategy. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so.
Other questions, comments for Josh? Just to sort of frame this, Josh has been coming to our every other week mayors and managers meeting. So he has, and this has been going on for a good year now. Yeah. So he keeps on top of what we're hearing. So every one of the communities have shared with him our concerns. Some of them have been brought up today. And I think that the best part has been the openness of Josh to be able to tell us honestly what's going on. It's not a pretty scene for all of us right now because the whole healthcare industry across the country is in flux. Also, just to say that Josh is one of the candidates for the CEO, and we hope that he gets the job because he's shown a strong commitment to this community. And I'm sorry. And that's been one of the concerns raised, is the continuing rotation of that CEO. We would like to see somebody who stays here for a longer period of time. And we've raised concerns around how are the community concerns dealt with by the hospital with a district that covers not just the Verde Valley and Flagstaff, but covers pretty much all of northern Arizona, all the way to Page, east, clear to Winslow, Holbrook, and to Kingman. So it's a huge geographic area. I think we have to always understand the context of our concerns in the bigger concerns of the Northern Arizona healthcare. Not that ours are not minor, our concerns are big.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And you're 100% right. And I keep saying this too. I mean, one, to build trust and relationships, you have to have consistency. So yeah, we haven't had consistency as an organization. I've been here about 3.5 or 4 years. I'm probably one of the longer term people. And you can't build relationships in that period of time. I will say we've been really, to your question on recruitment from a leadership perspective, we've been really fortunate. I had a pretty long career at Banner University before I came up here. So we were able to kind of hand select a lot of leaders to come up and help us. And I would say it's probably one of the best leadership teams I've worked with. And, you know, so it's going to take us a while to get there. I'm confident we have a leadership team to get there. I think we're making good progress. I was just reading an article today. You know, I sometimes gets a little discouraging to read, you know, well, we should bring competition to town. That's what we need. We need Banner, we need dignity, we need common spirit, you know, whatever it ends up being. You know, honestly, I've been at the bigger systems and I can tell you how rural healthcare is delivered there. That's part of the reason why we've been successful of recruiting people away from those larger systems. I just read an article today. You know, we struggle with contract labor, and you hear that a lot with, well, it's all travelers and, you know, it's hard to build consistent. Yeah, you're right. We're working on it. But you want to know of the top 5 systems in the country with the highest rate of contract labor? Banner, Dignity, Tenet. So if we think that's going to solve our problem, we're probably not quite there, right? And so I just say, I don't say that as an excuse. I just say that the state of healthcare is in a really challenging position right now. I think we all have to band together. We need to see better normalization of labor rates across the organization. We need to get back to more core staffing. And honestly, we've talked about it at depth, some of the federal funding, while it was really nice and helpful to get through the pandemic, it actually exacerbated a lot of the problems that we have today because we had money to spend on contract labor. So you see these big wages, and really the only people that won in that were the contract labor companies. So.
I guess the only thing I'd like to share is I moved from a place that had an incredible number of providers, but often it was difficult to get care. When I moved here 15 years ago, I was so pleasantly surprised to be in an incredibly rural community where access to care was
not an issue.
No, it wasn't an issue at all. It was easy. It was, people, you could get an appointment in a day or two. And I know we'll never go back to those days, but the idea, because we're in a rural community, thus our services are less, or is also doesn't necessarily, it's not what I've historically experienced here.
Right. Yeah, I think you're 100% right. I think healthcare is changing a lot too. I mean, I remember growing up in town I grew up was in Grinnell, Iowa, right? And my family physician was my pediatrician, was the one that delivered me and took care of me the entire time. Healthcare has changed a lot in terms of, we were just talking about that today. I mean, even within psychology, we have certain board credentials and certifications we want them to have. They're getting so specialized now that if you're a general psychologist, you get this board certification, you only see these patients. If you're not, you see these. Internal medicine doctors are going and saying, am I going to be an internal medicine doctor that provides primary care in the community? Am I going to be a hospitalist? Am I going to be, we're getting in, that works to your point, and really large metropolitan areas. We need to get more generalists. And so what I think you're going to see from us here, our historical cardiovascular model across the system was hire an interventionalist. That's the person that's putting your stent in, or if you're having a heart attack and you have a STEMI, they're saving your lives, right? Have them do that and have them manage the medications that you'd see for a general cardiologist, your lipids and all of that stuff. What we've kind of switched to, and we're going to see more of, is more general cardiology. So we can manage the medications, manage the symptoms before they get bad, and then have the interventionalists that are doing a lot of interventions. So the thing I equate it to, it's if we went out today and I haven't shot a free throw in 6 months, I'm probably not very good at shooting free throws, but if I shoot 10 a day for the next 100 days, I'll probably be pretty good by the time we go out. And that's not that dissimilar in medicine. Maybe that's a little bit too simplistic, but in medicine, we want our interventionalists doing lots of interventions with the same teams so they can get really proficient at it. And so they kind of all know what they're thinking. And so that's what we're trying to build. Good point.
Any other questions for Josh? This is not the end of the discussions in our community. There's more that I think are going to be planned.
I'm going to Verde Santa Fe tonight. So if any of you are going to be there, I'll be at Verde Santa Fe till probably 7:30. And then I think I don't know if it must not be the end of this month. Unless it's sometime in February, we're going to do a couple just town halls as well. Just probably similar type presentation, but get the ability to just say, hey, I heard this. This is what's going on. What happened to Dr. So-and-so? I won't speak specifics about particular physicians. I will just say this. We have the same standard across our entire system now. And anytime that anyone leaves abruptly, and I apologize to any of you who may have had a provider leave abruptly and you didn't have a good transition to another provider, no one in any organization leaves on a quick notice if there isn't something significant going on. So we'll talk more specific about that, but there's usually some pretty significant things why we're going to make those moves.
And when the town halls are organized, then we'll put them out to the community so that anybody who wants to attend can attend those town halls. So I very much appreciate your time, Josh. And I hope everybody got a little bit of information out of this. This is only my third or fourth time of hearing similar information, but it's always good. And I do learn something. So
thank you so much.
Nice to meet you. Let's move on to our next presentation. It's the annual financial audit presentation. Julie, do you want to come up and introduce the topic? Welcome.
So happy to introduce our auditor, Scott Graff, to everybody today. He's been actually doing audits for the town since, I'm guessing, around 2005, 2006. So long time, which was wonderful for me, being my first year with the town, to be able to have access to all of that information and all that history. So I'm going to let him do the presentation, but
thank you, Scott. Welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you, everyone. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, it's a pleasure to be here. I wish Joshua stayed because, I was going to compliment him. That was a great presentation. And I feel like if I'm being judged against that presentation, this is going to be a fail. But at the same time, my subject material is a little bit difficult to talk about, and I am a CPA. We're not really known for our communication skills, but I'll do my very best. Again, my name is Scott Graff. I am with Colby and Powell CPAs. We're a firm out of Gilbert. And I have been involved with the audit for quite a few years. It gives me some good perspective. We do bring on a lot of different auditors. We rotate auditors so we can get different perspective. That always is helpful in the audit process. Did everybody get a copy of the audit financial statements? And also, I believe I probably gave you a copy of the letter that is to, we call the letter to governance. You might have received the expenditure limitation report, all exciting stuff. Hopefully you've had a chance to look through it. I honestly think the only way I'm going to beat Josh in presentation is keep this short. And that's always helpful too, I understand. So what I'd like to do is just talk a little bit about what is inside this. I think it's almost 80-page book that you received. Basically, I'm going to talk about three different parts. I put page numbers in there. If you do have it, you can follow along. If not, that's fine. You're first going to see an independent auditor's report. Basically, that's what you actually are paying me to give you, a report on your financial statements. And this auditor report, right at the very beginning, has an opinion paragraph. The opinion paragraph, that's the most important part of the report, because that's saying, what are the actual results? First of all, we got to remember this is for June 30 year end. So June 30, 2022. And even though we're here in January, we're not talking about financial results through today, but through June 30. And so the results in the opinion says that you have basically what we call a clean opinion. So congratulations on getting a clean opinion.
Thank you. Yay.
So that's important. You know, you often hear from the auditor that you got a clean opinion. Don't discount that as being, well, that's easy. Everybody gets a clean opinion. Clean opinions are because you have a good internal control system. You have what we call the control environment. Control environment is how the overall environment is for the town. You have a council who listens to the finance department, makes policy, follows up on policy. You know, there's a lot involved in getting a clean opinion. So I wouldn't discount that at all. The opinion letter, the independent auditor's report, also has sections that actually describe what your responsibilities are as management and what my responsibilities are as auditors. And I think it's really good to read through that, because it becomes very clear in that report who's responsible for the financial statements. And it's not the auditors. Those responsibilities are for the management to have a good set of financial systems, to put together internal controls to make sure that the financial statements are what we call free of misstatements, material misstatements, whether the misstatements were caused by either just an error, a mistake, or whether they're caused by fraud. That's the ugly word, fraud. So it's management's responsibility to be able to put together controls to prevent material frauds in their financial statements. What are my responsibilities as an auditor? Is to plan and perform an audit to obtain reasonable assurance. In our profession, reasonable assurance means high level assurance that your financial statements are what you say they are, that you can present that to somebody, to creditors and banks and insurance and town members, or to anybody, and you can credibly say that they're free of material misstatements. Also, whether that mistake is caused by fraud or error. However, if we do find a fraud or an error, we propose the adjustments. And if it's a fraud, our responsibility is to report the fraud to the appropriate level of management. Sometimes that would be to the town council. I'm pleased to say there were no frauds that needed to be reported. So moving on to the management discussion analysis. Page 5 through 22. This is a rather large section in your audit packet. This is from your management, and it's management's overview of the financial statement report. And it's to provide what we say is an easy to easy to read analysis. And so if you want to like skip anything, don't skip that part. That's a great part to look at. It also provides comparative type financial statements. It puts together prior year and current year, so you kind of see the differences, how things change between one year and the next. So that's an important part of the financial statements. After the management discussion and analysis, the rest of it is the different types of required financial statements. We refer to some of them called government-wide financial statements. Those are on page 24 and 25. Those statements are important because it helps governments compare with each other. And it also helps for cities and towns to be able to look whether they're improving or deteriorating financially. The fund financial statements are like your general fund. Your special revenue funds are funds like your highway user revenue fund, grants funds, ARPA funds, things that were received throughout the year that you're required to report separately. General fund obviously being your fund that you maintain all your daily duties of the town. So all important, found in the fund statements, and of course you'll have footnotes to all those. And then at the very back, you'll have more audit reports, and there's two typically required reports. And in your case, you only have one of those this year. And it's basically a report because you're a government. You have to follow, or we have to follow what's called governmental auditing standards. And all that means is that we have to look at your internal controls and then report whether we find anything in your internal controls that create what we call maybe a significant deficiency. And if there are significant issues in your internal controls, this is where we would report that in your audit. Fortunately, there weren't any deficiencies that met the requirement to be inclusive in this report. That doesn't mean that the town is perfect in all their duties. Typically, it is expected that the auditor will propose audit entries, and we did make audit entries. Things weren't perfect, but they were good enough that they didn't substantiate a finding. There were also areas that I believe I reported them in your letter to governance that I'd like to go over with you. Okay, there are two areas that we found that were audit findings that didn't quite meet that requirement for inclusion, but met a requirement to discuss. And one was just, there's a bank account that is maintained at the magistrate court office. That bank account is being reconciled to the underlying records of the bank statement. And the requirement is those bank records at the court get delivered over to the town hall, to the finance department. The town hall's finance department has their accounting system in which the information that they're receiving from the magistrate court gets journal entered and input into the accounting system and reconciled on that accounting system to those records. Just because there's been so much turnover, the process just kind of got a little bit out of care. And so we recognized that immediately. That's already been corrected, currently is being reconciled to the town's accounting records. So I don't expect that to be a finding on next year. The second item is the town's fund balances. The town has accumulated fund balances that can be spent for anything unrestricted. There are portions of fund balances that are been assigned or committed by council, said, hey, we're going to use that money that came in and we're going to use it for purpose A, B, and C. And then there's another category where it could be restricted. Restricted would be monies coming from a grant or a donor, an outside restriction saying, this money has to be used for only this purpose. The town council even can't change how that restricted money is going to be spent. And so over the years, this tracking system of fund balance has been partly in the general ledger, but partly on spreadsheets. And again, because of the turnover going from finance managers to the next finance manager to the next, which has been pretty rapid the last few years. Some of that information just got a little bit convoluted and lost. It was found and recreated, but we talked about with management that what needs to be done is funds and accounts needs to be set up to track. That doesn't mean an Excel spreadsheet doesn't get used, because you can't track everything just in accounts, but it just needs to be something that is well organized, well maintained, that can be carried forward from year to year and not lost. So that was the finding. That's already taking place as well. And I think you're in good shape. So that concludes what I wanted to talk about for auditing. But I do have a couple more slides that create a few financial statements.
Okay.
All right. So let's go to the very next slide. And what you'll see here is your general fund. What you have in your financial packet is the June 30, 2022 revenue, expenses. But I put together the 4 years prior, so you have a 5-year comparison. See, I find this helpful because you can kind of see where we've come over the years. And then I highlighted the yellow. The yellow represents a change in fund balance. In regular business, we would call that either a profit or a loss. So are we making money or are we losing money? You could see the 5 years from 2018 was a small increase in 2019, although substantially bigger than 18, increasing each year. You could kind of see COVID years were actually pretty good financially. I'm not saying COVID years are good. I'm just saying good financially due to the monies that came in to help support COVID. And so the green is actually your ending year fund balance. That has also increased to the tune where now it's currently nearly $6 million. And when you look back at 2018, 1.6, so you can see a substantial increase. Okay, I'll come back to this for any questions, but I want to move on to enterprise funds, your utility funds. So in your utility funds, this is utility funds in total. And I don't know if you have access to your report, but on page 31 of your financial report, you can see what those totals come from. It's basically you have your wastewater fund, sanitation, your water fund, cemetery fund. Not all of those are some of those are doing better than other funds, but in total, we can look at the total charges for services for all funds. The blue outline is your operating income and loss. So just normal operations, you can see it as well over the period of 5 years has increased. Your net change in position is including things like capital grants. We don't always get grants. In this case, I'm sorry, capital contributions. Capital contributions are more, cap fees and things like that. It's not part of operations, but it's a cap fee. You can see how in total in yellow, it's increased year to year, which is good. You can see the green representing the fund net position at the end of the year. 2018 was 7.5 million, 7.6, and now currently is 12.1. Now the question is that I get all the time, like, we got all these fund positions that are doing really well. What can we spend? Is it spendable? When we look at your financial statements, there's more to fund net position than what this report is telling you. And if you had page 30 in front of you, you would have 3 types of net position. I actually wish I would have brought a slide with this. I apologize. Your net position, as it relates to this 12,182,000, shows that 6,947,000 is invested in your capital assets. All right, we can't spend our water system, our sewer lines. It's unspendable. It's still value, and it is part of that position, but it's non-spendable. Some of that 12 million, 1.5 million is restricted, meaning that an outside source restriction is on that money, and therefore it can only be used for the purposes related to the restriction. And then the remaining balance, if we take those 2 away, you have 3.7 million, which is unrestricted. So that's the number that you'll be looking at when you look at your financial statement of unrestricted. Now, remember, this is split up between cemetery. You know, cemetery has a smaller unrestricted balance. In fact, it's in a deficit right now. Wastewater is in a deficit. Sanitation has a small $200,000 unrestricted balance, but most of your unrestricted balance, over 4.8 million unrestricted, pretty much the entire balance is sitting in your water. You know, and I understand that you'll have new wells and new things, but this is, you know, these are planned new construction activity that these things are going to be valuable to you at that time. Beneficial if you get a grant for that, but understanding that when you look at these fund balances, not everything in 12 million is spendable. Did that make any sense? Do you need me to go back and look at anything else?
It made sense. Actually, I read all of it, so I'm that was my Sunday afternoon reading. But it was good. And it shows that we're in a fairly healthy position. I want to applaud both our finance director and our town manager for stepping up right away and dealing with the 2 areas of concern. And I think we kind of knew one of them was there, the courts, because we have been in transition with just personnel and moving our courts to Cottonwood. So we knew some of that probably was there. So as long as we're correcting it, it's fine. And I think we've had a debate on fund balance and how to track it and present it since our town manager has come here, because she's like, I want to know what cash we have.
Right.
So those things, I'm glad that we're moving, you know, that they're being dealt with, and we get regular financial reportings to the council. So that's been very helpful too. So Scott, thank you.
Thank you. In closing, you know, I was really worried about coming to do the audit, knowing the transitions that were going on, because it's really ugly when this happens. Yeah. But I was very surprised how well it transitioned. You have good people in place, and they understand this, including the fund balance. Everything we just talked about, they're on board with, and they understand it. And I'm very impressed and pleased with what I've seen. And I think otherwise you would have had probably a lot more findings and reports, and I'd be really frustrated, but I'm not frustrated. It turned out really well. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Scott, so much.
I look forward to more good news later too.
And any comments from council for Scott?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you so much. See you next year. Thank you, Julie. And thank you, town manager Susan. Yes, thank you both so much. Thank you, audience, for going through those 2 presentations. They're just things that we have to do, and we'll move on to new business, right? First of all, no, excuse me, we have consent agenda. We have 3 items on consent today. Approval of the minutes, town manager's evaluation, letter of findings, and request to ratify applications of a smart fund grant. Do any of the items need to be polled? With your pleasure, I'd like just briefly poll item B. Okay. If I could, so I'll take a motion to approve items A and C if we could on the consent.
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve items A and C as presented.
Well, second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Babbitt Pierce and seconded by Vice Mayor Hunsetter to approve consent agenda items A and C. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion carried. Item B is the town manager's evaluation letter, and I thought, just privilege, I thought I would point out for the audience a few items in her letter. Our letter to her. On January 12th, 2023, the Clarkdale Town Council met in executive session to discuss and evaluate town manager Susan Guthrie's annual performance per her contract agreement terms. In the evaluation, we looked at communication skills, management effectiveness, community relations, and other skills and qualities. The majority of the the town council members ranked Ms. Guthrie's performance #1, which means exceeds expectations. The objective sections were also overwhelmingly positive. Councils were unanimous in their approval of Susan's performance. All felt she not only adequately, but exceptionally fulfilled her duties as town manager of the town and as a representative of the town to other jurisdictions, groups, and to the town citizens in a very short amount of time, understanding she just completed her first year with Clarkdale. Susan has done an outstanding job completing her first year game plan while maintaining an open door policy and exhibiting a contagious spirit of fun. Yes, we have these wonderful quarterly employee gatherings, and they're always fun, and other fun things that go on in the town. It is my sincere pleasure to write this evaluation and to state our unambiguous satisfaction with Ms. Guthrie's performance for her duties. Her dedication to the town, to her staff, to her job is second to none. And the town of Clarkdale is a better place and has a more efficient, effective government because of our town manager, Susan Guthrie. Thank you very much. And with that, I will take a motion to approve consent agenda item B.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve consent agenda item B, town manager's evaluation.
Is there a second to that?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded by Councilmember Jones and Councilmember O'Neill to approve consent agenda item B, the town manager's evaluation. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
you.
Susan.
I just want to say thank you so much. I said it in executive session, but this has been the most wonderful position of my career. I love working with all of you. It's so positive and we're doing a lot of really exciting things. But the most important thing I just want to say is, and when you got our achievements, they're not my achievements, they're the team's achievements. And anything that I do or get credit for is really based upon what my team does. And, you know, a bunch of them are here today. And I mean, they're doing really incredible, exceptional work and they make me successful. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, staff, and thank you very much. With that, let's move on to item 8, which is new business. The first item on our agenda this afternoon is a public hearing on Black Hills West Minor Subdivision Final Plat. And I believe Community Development Director, Tom is coming up. Sorry there, Tom, is going to be doing the presentation on this one. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Town Manager, and Council members, and the public. Today, we bring before you Black Hills West Minor Subdivision Final Plat. We have a clicker? Oh,
Robin, do
Which
we need
button
to approve
should I
the
push?
final?
Yeah, let me, as you're getting that ready, just want to make sure that we are opening this up as a public hearing.
Need to approve the audit?
Yeah. We'll do that later. We're approving that later, so for the agenda. Okay. I just want to note that we are having a public hearing after the presentation. The public will have an opportunity to comment on this subdivision. Tom.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, it's Black Hills West Minor Subdivision Final Plat. The location is approximately, let's see, it's going to be west of the Yavapai College. On the west side, on the east side is Haskell Springs Road. And so it's a little over 15 acre subdivision. It's 3 parcels right now, but it will be platted into 10 separate parcels. Oops. Okay, here we go. This is a more, kind of shows the plat overlaid in that position between the college on the west and Haskell Spring Road on the right, and it's on the south side of Black Hills Drive. Let's see. 3 parcels, approximately 15.75 acres platted to 10 single-family residential lots averaging 1.6 acres each. Okay, here's a better blow up of the whole plat. At the top there, that yellow stripe is Black Hills Drive. It also represents the dedication of a 25-foot right-of-way for ingress, egress, and utilities that the subdivision is going to dedicate. There's going to be 2 major access points. You can see 2 cul-de-sacs there. They will service 8 lots total. And then on the end there, the west end is that little orange strip is Haskell Springs. And they'll have individual driveways coming off there to the final 2 lots there. Okay, the review process is mostly through staff. Ruth Mayday, the Public Works Director, and Corey, Public Works Director, review the plat along with Yavapai County Flood Control District and the Verde Valley Fire District. Because it is just a minor subdivision plat, that's something with 10 acres or less, it doesn't have to go to Planning Commission. So we do the review and it checks all the boxes, and we bring it to you for final review and approval. The budget impact, there is none. Strategic plan goal area is goal area number 2, which enhances the quality of life for residents, businesses, and visitors in Clarkdale. And also provides, let's see. Okay. Also provides a much needed housing in the area too. Okay, the staff recommends, the staff recommends approval of the proposed final plat based on the following findings of fact. It conforms to the adaptive general plan goals, objectives, and policies of the town. The project is zoned single family residential, R1L, which is a 1 acre minimum. And let's see, the proposed subdivision is reviewed and approved. Will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, or general welfare. The project, as proposed, provide much needed housing for the community. Environmentally, there's really no concerns. The project will not have mass grading. Those are 10 individual lots that will be purchased by individual people. Then they'll build their home on each lot. And see, it's consistent with provisions and intents, zoning code requirements applicable to the property. The project is consistent with the uses and intent of the zoning code and meets or exceeds the requirements therein. So I went through that. Okay, so the review process, like I said earlier, the town reviews the project. That would be community development and also public works. And then it goes out to Yavapai County Flood Control for review and the fire department, and also to all the utility companies out there that will service them, like the gas, electric, so forth. So we all got letters service from them too. Let's see. So that's the review process.
Other direction.
Strategic plan goal area. Okay, we already saw that. Okay, we're back to this. Whoops, I went backwards, didn't I?
There you go.
So staff recommends approval of the proposed final plat based on the following findings of fact. And so we just went through those, I believe. Yeah. Yep. And so we're at this stage. I guess at this point, I mean, we open it up to comments from the council and then the public.
First, we open it, it's a public hearing, so
Okay.
we'll open up for public comment and then we'll close public hearing and then go to the final plat approval.
We also have the applicants here to answer any questions.
Actually, that's what I was going to say. If the applicants wish to come up and make comments on this right now, that would be good.
I'll leave this up here in case they have to get
That's
back to the map.
Thank you, Tom. And we are in public hearing, so if there's anybody else who wishes to speak on this after the applicant makes some comments, you're welcome to.
Wasn't really prepared to public speak, but
Introduce yourself.
yes, my name is Audra Backus. I'm the owner of CZR LLC that's interested in developing this 15.75 acres. I believe it to be the least amount of impact and the best use of the property. And so we're hoping to seek your approval today. Go ahead with any questions you may have. It might be easy.
I think we'll go to public. Anybody from the public who wishes to comment on this, since we are in public hearing? Seeing nobody coming up, we'll hold our questions until we go to final plat, okay? So if there's no public comment on this in public hearing, your pleasure, I will close public hearing. Is that okay? And we'll go straight to final plat, which is the next item, is the plat itself, the subdivision plat. Are there any questions from staff or from council, excuse me?
I have one quick question.
Yes.
Thank you for coming today. As the developer, I heard that the plan is to sell off the individual 10 lots to custom home building.
Yes.
Is it your plan to put in the street, the cul-de-sac that we see on the plan?
Yes, the two roads coming in, they're not very long. I forget how many.
Yeah,
how many
look
feet
like a
they are,
little
but the cul-de-sac.
ingress.
The cul-de-sacs are to allow for fire access and turnaround.
Okay.
So then the fire doesn't have to come down Haskell Springs and then Hidden Springs Drive, creates that access for them. They were also intended to be easements for utilities as well, because we're still in discussion with utility companies on what is actually best per individual lot. You know, a homeowner may decide that they want their house in a particular location, and having the electric or the gas at the lower end of the property might not actually be the best thing for them. So we're still in discussion with that. And what else did you have?
Oh, I just,
Yes,
that's
I'm
maybe you're
intending
gonna,
on doing that.
yeah.
Of course.
Is that
Yeah,
gonna
we-
be curb and gutter type? Ingress
No,
or-
we're still in discussion with that
Okay.
as far as what's required. Like I said, they were intended to be like an easement, so we don't want any, we don't want to have to go in and tear up any of that asphalt, you know, after the fact.
Okay.
But we're intending on doing, believe it's 4 to 6 inches of AB compacted and then possibly a crushed granite surface at the end. The thought is to keep it a little bit on the rural feeling for those people that live there. As you know, across from Gemini Drive is Rockview Lane. There's Hidden Springs, there's Robert Road, there's Windmill Lane. Those are all private drives that are all the AB. And I think, and then those roads won't be maintained by the town. They'll be maintained privately by the individuals that live on each one of those. So there'll be 4 individuals per road.
Okay. All right, thank you. And thank you for listening to the community when you had your public outreach as well.
Yeah, and I'd like to thank Ruth Mayday and Tom Blanchard for all the time that they spent with us, making it so helpful, so welcoming, so easy. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Yes, Laura.
I had a question. Tom said something about it didn't need to go to planning because it was under 10 acres, but it's actually.
Tom, can you come up here?
I meant 10 lots, I'm sorry.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, I meant lots.
Tom, could you come up to the microphone?
Okay, and I understood that.
Okay, yeah.
And then.
Are we?
Sorry.
That was 10 lots, not acres.
That's a minor subdivision.
Lots of
No, I just wanted to make sure.
Right away.
Yeah, I heard the same thing.
The other question I have is about water and sewer, and will these homes be connected to town water and sewer?
Town water is available, however, it would take a major sewer extension to service those 10 lots. Each lot owner would have to pay $80,000 for that sewer main extension, so it's kind of out of reach right now. But they're going to have individual septic tanks that will be approved by Yavapai County Environmental. And once the sewer main is in place, which could be 5-10 years down the road, they will, I think that if they're within so many feet of the sewer main, they have to connect. So I'm not sure where that main's going to run. It's probably going to go running up Black Hills Drive. So at that time, you know, that would be the opportunity to connect to the sewers.
Thank you.
This is Stephen Polk, town attorney. Hey, Tom, I really appreciate you seeing the dedication of the public right away on Black Hills Drive on the north side of this property. Is there a dedication of an easement on the west side for Haskell Springs Road as well? And is that something?
Can we bring that back up, Chairman, please? Okay.
On the west side.
Yeah, on the west side.
The west side?
Mhm.
Okay, over here?
No, the west side over on Haskell Springs
Okay,
Road.
west side. So Haskell Springs Road is, it's a 25-foot wide utilities and ingress, egress, and utilities easement. So it's in place already, and it's being used. Haskell Springs Road comes all the way up, servicing through home. So, you know, I think there's a little alleyway out here. Some of these people hooks into their backyard so they can pull the trailer around them.
Perfect. Thank you, Tom.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, I do have a question in terms of, are there going to be any improvements along Black Hills Drive in that area? Because there's 2 new access points onto Black Hills Drive with this development.
Is Corey here? Corey, oh, Ruth. Okay, so what I know about it is these 2 cul-de-sacs are privately owned and privately developed.
Right.
At some point, they have to connect into Black Hills Drive. That is correct. So we will have to coordinate with Public Works Department on how to do that. So we don't have construction plans yet, but that's what they will address at that time.
Okay, yeah, that's a good answer. Are you asking whether or not, I'm sorry, could you repeat that question? Oh, are we?
Well, we have 2 new access points onto Black Hills Drive. What improvements are going to have to happen for those access points?
So the improvements will be on the driveways will be on a private property. There won't be any changes to Black Hills Drive because the additional traffic doesn't warrant any upgrades to that drive, according to the engineers.
Yeah, there's no sidewalk that goes up that way currently, or
Nothing to help that road at all.
No, and they also have a private road maintenance agreement out there, so we don't want to mess with that.
Sure, no, and I understand that, but it's 2 more access points onto Black Hills Drive, and my concern is gravel going onto that road in the whole 9 yards with the AB. And I understand it's, you know,
we're still discussing those.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So I'm just raising my concern is that transition from private onto that major connector road there. So we need to make sure that we're not bringing more damage onto that road, which is already substandard. Yeah. So that's my concern. I'm just bringing that to, and I understand the need to have a septic system there and the cost of hooking into the sewer, which is not there. Is there going to be a requirement they have that capacity easily when the sewer connection gets to them?
Yes, they should. I mean, it's going to be, if they put a sewer main extension, it will be engineered to pick up those houses or any other houses that might be in that area.
Okay. I just want to make sure of that. Because I was hoping that we could get them onto sewer. I'm not a huge fan of continuing to build septic.
Right. We looked at that. Our Public Works Department did a cost study.
Yeah, I truly understand that. Yeah.
So we put that effort into.
I do. Okay. Any other questions on this? Okay, we are in the subdivision plat discussion. So there's a list of how we go forward. Is there a motion from council?
Mayor, I move to approve the final plat based on the following findings of fact. The proposed subdivision conforms to the adopted general plan goals, objectives, and policies of the town. The proposed subdivision, as reviewed and approved, will not be detrimental to public health, safety, and general welfare. Environmental concerns conform to the adopted standards and have either been addressed or will be addressed prior to the approval of the final plat. The design of the proposed subdivision is sensitive to the physical characteristics of the site. The proposed subdivision is consistent with provisions and intents of zoning code requirements applicable to the property. The proposed subdivision conforms to the improvement standards and design standards set forth in these regulations and other applicable town, county, state, and federal regulations. And with the following stipulations, that the final plat, when submitted, be in a substantial conformance with the preliminary plat submitted herewith, that the applicant, CZR LLC, agrees to abide with the development agreement conditions established by the town of Clarkdale and is a condition for final plat approval and the issuance of building permits. The developer and individual lot owners will abide by the covenants, codes, and restrictions, CC&Rs, declaration of subdivision established by the town of Clarkdale, and as a condition for final plat approval and the issuance of building permits.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Babbitt Pierce and seconded by Vice Mayor Hunstetter to approve the final plat based on the findings as read by Councilmember Pierce. That's findings A through F, and with the stipulations 1 through 3 that have been presented. Without me reading them all again. Is there any comment on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carried. Thank you so much, all of you, and look forward to it being up breaking ground soon. Okay, let's move on to item 8C. Partial abandonment of the subdivision of the Radley property. Ruth Mayday is presenting.
Pardon me? It's in that folder.
Radley.
One moment, please.
Play the Jeopardy song.
That's it. All right. Let's hope. So we're here this evening, or this afternoon, excuse me, to discuss the partial abandonment of the Radley subdivision. This is the second time that you have seen this project. We looked at it at the preliminary plat stage. For those who are not familiar with this property, it is right next to Crossroads at Mingus, and also abuts Minorich Road and is south of Old Jerome Highway. This plat was originally recorded in 1916, and it's a rather interesting configuration of lots. And we're very excited to finally get this in front of you for final approval. This was the first meeting I had with someone from Clarkdale on development when I got here 3 years ago. Luke came into my office and said, "So would you like to get rid of this?" Yes, I would. Come on, click. There we go. So again, this is kind of an area map and shows you relative to major streets and roads in Clarkdale where it sits. So access in the future to this property will be one of three ways. Carrie Lee Drive to the north, Eagle Ridge Road in the Crossroads at Mingus will also provide access, and then Mescal Spur Road will also provide access. So the type and size and configuration or construction of those access points will depend on what future development comes forth. So when a developer comes forward, one of the things that we always require is a traffic analysis. It can be for something small like the minor subdivision you just approved, just a traffic letter that says this is not going to have a significant impact on traffic, no further improvements are required. Or something of this scale is most likely going to require improvements to surrounding roads because it's likely to be a larger subdivision, more homes. So when that plat does come forward, that's when we talk about road improvements to make sure that the impact of this subdivision on the roads is not borne by the existing property owners, but rather by the developer who's creating that impact. So the current entitlement for this property is zoned R1, which is a 10,000 square foot minimum lot size. That would require assembly of 4 of the existing lots because they're only 2,500 square feet. The land use designation is low density residential, which is a maximum of 5 dwelling units per acre. Right now, this is platted for 11 dwelling units per acre. So neither of these really work. We have a plat that doesn't conform to zoning, and we really are kind of at a loss as how to move forward. So the best thing working with the property owner, Mingus Land Company, and the engineering firm was to simply erase everything we possibly could with the exception of those properties that are already developed and start all over. So this again is the original plat. You can see how many, there's roughly 600 lots in there, quite a few. So this is the cover sheet to the partial abandonment. So you can see here that all of the roads are gone and all of the lots are gone. Arizona revised statutes in the streets and roads section provides a process for the town to abandon the roads back to the developer. And that's the resolution that you see today, see before you today. So everything goes away and we start all over. And in a larger sense, it looks like this. So you can see, again, we have those lots that are accepted, measured out very specifically, so we know exactly where they are. Those will remain part of the original Radley subdivision. And then, like I said, it all goes away. As an administrative review, they have, the applicant is requesting a minor land division to split this into 3 lots. So this is what the minor land division will look like. It would basically, excuse me, parcels. It basically creates 3 approximately 28-acre parcels for future development. So in a municipality, if you have 4 more lots, it is a subdivision. So the Mingus Land Company cannot subdivide this any further without coming back with a plat of some sort. So this gives the town and the surrounding neighbors the ability to work with the developer to create something that will fit in rather than 625 by 100 foot lots. This is just the detail to the area that's being accepted. We have the same findings of fact here, that the proposed subdivision conforms to the adopted general plan, goals, objectives, and policies of the town, will not be detrimental to public health, safety, and welfare. The environmental concerns conform to adopted standards. The design of the proposed subdivision is sensitive to the physical characteristics. The proposed subdivision is consistent with the provisions and intents of the zoning code, and it conforms to the improvement standards and design standards set forth in these regulations and other applicable codes. They're not proposing any really design standards or any design of anything other than the minor land division, but we felt we'd just leave that in there. Those are the findings of fact, so we found them. And really, that's it. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. The applicant's here, the property owner's here. So if you have questions about how the development proceeds, what the next steps are, anything like that, or just comments.
Any comments from council members on this? I guess my only comment is, I know we're abandoning all the roads. So when when one of the sections gets any of the sections, the new roads going in will have to comply with the general plan.
Yes.
Connector transportation layout. So things like Mescal Spur being continued to be a connector road will be a part of that discussion.
Yes, absolutely. Yep, and in fact, we've already had those conversations with them about where new roads would connect.
Okay, okay, thank you, because that's one of my ongoing concerns with any of our developments is how do we all connect so we don't have little areas that are hard to get to for our public safety or for emergency situations that might occur. So
exactly, and that's a very good point. We try to be careful to make sure that we cover all of those aspects when we review these.
Okay, that's just sort of my general comment on that. Would the applicant, the landowner, and/or engineer like to come make any comments? Come on up.
He's coming.
Mike, you got anything to say?
I think we'll let Judge Bluff make a comment. Welcome.
Thank
Good
you,
to see
Madam
you.
Mayor, members of the council. It's nice to be here. When I started this process in '96, my hair and my dad's hair were black.
Yes, they were.
The three that are Rick Rosenzweig had a full set of hair. It's been a while. I really appreciate the work that Ruth has done with, for putting all this together. It's been difficult. It's been frustrating. It's taken a long time. I appreciate the efforts of the town attorney to get this done. It's just been a long time coming, and I appreciate everyone's work in getting it done. It's taken a lot of work. Our engineer Luke and David are here. They did all the work really, but again, you know, we're hoping that we can, once it's split into 3 parcels, then some other developer, you know, can come in and make it look pretty for everybody, but it won't be us. So anyway, I'll answer any questions that you have, but I just appreciate the opportunity.
Well,
to be here.
we appreciate your perseverance on this.
And due diligence.
Diligence and to get it done, because this is the right thing to do with that property.
Yeah, it really is.
Finally, to get it to someplace where it can be developed.
And it's in a beautiful spot up there. It's in the foothills. Yeah, and there's nice homes around it. And so hopefully
it's
someone
a
will come in
gorgeous spot. So
put a first class subdivision.
Yeah. With
All
that,
right.
any comments or statements, questions to the applicant?
No, just thank you all for putting this together and making sure we don't have 600 new homes.
Because they were going to be really tiny.
Yeah, that'd be
I know we need homes in the area, but you didn't really want.
I think they're jackrabbit hutches that go in there.
New York City brownstones is what they are.
Yeah.
They literally are New York City brownstones, which are
Exactly.
normally 25 feet wide and anywhere, probably about 70 feet long. And so you
Right.
have 30 feet per backyard. So that's what they
Look
that's
like
what
the
they-
lots on Main Street.
Yes.
Main Street.
Thank you all very much. And
Thank you very much. Thank you all for working on this. If there's no questions for the, did anybody have any questions for staff or anything like that? If not,
You
I'll
entertain a motion? Yeah, Madam Mayor, I recommend approval of resolution 1688, approving the partial abandonment of plat for the subdivision of the Radley property and abandoning all roads and alleyways within the area of abandonment as stipulated therein.
There's a second to that motion.
I'll second.
It's been moved by Vice Mayor Hunstetter and seconded by Councilmember Jones to approve resolution 1688, approving the partial abandonment of the plat for the subdivision of the Radley property and abandoning all roads and alleyways within the area of abandonment as stipulated therein. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Yay. Whew. Take a breath. Let's move on to item D. Item D is the Plateau at Clarkdale final condominium plat. Bruce Mayday is up again.
Okay, so here we are again. This one is a little bit different than the last one. This one will be approving a condominium plat for the Plateau at Clarkdale that's located literally across the street. This is the location of the project. Like I said, across the street. This land has been abandoned for some time. In fact, it was pointed out to me that this April is the 40th anniversary of the building burning down.
Oh, wow.
So it's been vacant for some time, and we're really pleased to see that it is going to be used in a way that will benefit the community. So just real quick for people who don't know what a condominium is a division of airspace rather than a division of land, which is what you get in a subdivision. So most people think that condominiums are always a multifamily or an attached single family product. Not always. Sometimes they can be like this, where the units are individually owned, they're in a building envelope, and then you have common area. So a condominium plat is very similar to that. Instead of having the lots horizontally, the lots stack up vertically, and they're the units that people are living in. So this is one of the units that is being proposed for this project. And you can kind of see here how that airspace gets divided, what's a limited common element and what's a common area which everyone is entitled to use. This is really hard to read because these are big sheets. This is the cover sheet for the final plat for the Plateau at Clarkdale. There's certain things that we look for on these sorts of documents: declarations, dedications, acknowledgements, signature blocks for the mayor, for the clerk to verify, all of those kinds of things. They're all here. So is the vicinity map. Those are all required for this sheet. These are just general notes about the subdivision. It has a legal description in very, very tiny print. This is where we get into the meat of it. So this shows you the unit boundaries for both types of buildings, for the first floor and the second floor. So the heavy lines kind of outline where these units are. There's also the table you see to the right shows the finished floor elevations for each unit, which is how those units are basically demarcated. This shows you the configuration of buildings. And again, the heavy lines are the first floor plans. So this is setting forth the boundaries for those first floor units. And some of these have second stories to them. And then this is the same thing for the second story. So as part of this project, we have also worked on a development agreement with the developer because they're impacting the community. Rather than have them try to build a park on this site that would probably have limited use, they've agreed to contribute $52,000 to the construction of Selma Mangini Park so that we can have a much better, bigger park rather than a little park. And we have also, they have also agreed to repair the historic stairway. They've designed this project so that people can use that stairway to access. As pedestrian access. They've agreed to restore that. We provided a set of the original plans. We actually have them for that stairway, restore the historic lamps that used to be there, and then to paint that retaining wall so that it blends in with the project a little bit better.
Nice.
The developer is here, his engineer is here. If you have any questions that you have of me, of the developer, we'd be happy to answer anything that you have.
I'll open up for questions.
My only question is regarding the painting of the wall. And I know I think I was on planning commission when we discussed that. And I know it went to design review board. My only concern is that wall extends beyond the property.
Right.
And I think if you paint that wall, it becomes a maintenance issue. And so, though I know there's a desire to make that wall blend in with the project, it may just wind up being more work down the road for everybody. So I just think it just needs to be revisited, and maybe when we're at the point where there may be, and I don't know if that's possible, to make an assessment whether that really needs to be done or not, because I just think we're just asking for a headache when we start painting that wall.
So the entirety of the wall is in the public right of way. So this would be an offsite improvement, as we call them. The HOA will be maintaining that wall in perpetuity, keeping it painted in perpetuity.
Yeah, it just feels like unnecessary maintenance is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Not for anybody. I don't think anybody should be doing it. Them or, the HOA or the town. So that's just.
It's a good point you bring up.
Yeah.
The only thing
on that is the ongoing maintenance with issues like graffiti or just chipping away the paint over time as it gets old and flakes off and stuff like that.
And like it goes, that wall continues into in front of the Copper Museum.
Right, but that's still public.
Well, I know it's still public right away, but I don't know, just maybe rethink that when we get closer to that actual moment. And I don't know.
Comment I would have on that is it is being tagged a lot, and Corey's here, and when it gets tagged, we don't go paint over it. The guys have to grind it down to get it off. So it's labor intensive, and it's probably causing damage and wear to the wall to do that. And so as much as, I agree that it's more maintenance, but it probably will be easier to deal more quickly with graffiti if we can match the paint and keep that up. So.
Okay.
Yes, just as a point of clarification to Councilor Jones' comment, so would the developer be maintaining the entire length of that wall?
Painting the length.
The entire piece. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's an offsite improvement, correct?
Mm-hmm.
That is it, yeah. Any other questions or comments?
I know that somewhere in the packet it discussed the order of the buildings, like phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. I'm just curious how you decided like where to start and why.
First of all, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. My name is John Lash, and I'm the managing member of the Plateau Partners. To answer your question, council member, we typically don't like homeowners to drive through our construction. So we try to phase it where we build and have a secondary access to keep building, but not really affect the people that move in.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I wouldn't want to drive through that construction either.
Placing a lot of tires.
Yeah.
Whether we cause the problem or not, but we've learned over time. Any other questions or
comments? No, all I say, it's great to see. I'm glad it's finally here. It's gone through an extensive community process. I appreciate that you've listened to the community in bringing it forward in terms of design, layout, things like the wall, color of the wall, and all of that, so that it's much needed. I gave my comment already on one of the declarations about possibility of a gated community in the past, and that is that could be put up, and I asked that it not be in that declaration because that didn't fit Clarkdale, and especially with access already in other ways. The gate just doesn't make any sense. So so I appreciate you being sensitive to that. And it's a good project. It's needed. Everybody keeps asking me, when is it being built? And the longer, so we're glad that it's here today for final plat.
thank you, and thank everybody for all the consideration.
And we thank you so much, all of you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. So any other comments anybody has? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Do we have an estimated timeline for the start of the
Yes,
project?
I think that's what we didn't ask you. Go back up. Yeah, yeah. It's just that it's recorded, John. So.
Yeah, that's all right. Our goal is to probably begin sometime in late April, early May. There's a Unisource gas line that has to be relocated. And so with this being the high demand for gas season, it's not practical to try to, expose that line and relocate it at this point. But we've been in communication with Unisource, and that's kind of our goal.
It's a major change, movement of that gas line.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay.
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve the final condominium plat as submitted based on the following findings of fact. The proposed subdivision conforms to the adopted general plan goals, objectives, and policies of the town. The proposed subdivision, as reviewed and approved, will not be detrimental to public health, safety, and general welfare. Environmental concerns conform to adopted standards. The design of the proposed subdivision is sensitive to the physical characteristics of the site. The proposed subdivision conforms to the improvement standards and design standards set forth in these regulations and other applicable town, county, state, and federal regulations.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
It's been moved by Council Member Babbitt Pearson, seconded by Vice Mayor Hunsetter, to approve the final condominium plat as submitted based on the findings 1 through 5 as presented by Councilmember Babbitt Pierce. Is there any?
Is it too late to ask a question?
No, you may ask a question.
Okay. Can you put up the plat? Sorry.
No, that's okay. This is
Further discussion.
this is part of discussion of the motion. So yes, you can. You want the picture?
The picture of the subdivision of the plat, yeah. Yeah.
That one.
No, not that one. Go back.
That one?
That one. I don't know. Well, to the right of building 6, there's a parcel that says it's parcel 400-06-031C commercial. Is that part of this plan? And is there potential for there to be a commercial building put on that spot?
No, that's where it gets pretty steep.
Okay. Okay, that was.
And if they wanted to do that in the future, they'd have to come back and amend the plat. So.
Right.
Also, Mayor, if I might ask you to amend that motion to also approve the development agreement that was attached.
Gotcha. Okay. Maker of the motion, would you add to the motion approval of the development agreement as attached?
I would like to add to my motion approval of the development agreement as attached.
And I'll second that.
Okay. We have the motion before us is to approve the final condominium plat as submitted, along with the attached development agreement based on the following findings, 1 through 5, as presented by Councilmember Babbitt Pierce and seconded by Vice Mayor Hunsetter. We got that? Understand that? Any other questions? Hearing, seeing none. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion carried.
Thank you.
Yay. Yay. Item 8E is the final of the annual financial audit. Julie, would you please come up and just do that presentation to get it okayed?
So you've already heard the presentation tonight for the annual financial audit. And so this is just requesting a motion to accept the financial statement audit. The language I think is discuss. I think it's just to approve and accept. Is that correct? Yeah. Financial statement audit. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, will you take a motion?
Yeah, hold on a minute. I just want to say and reiterate again to you and to the town manager for having this audit be as good and positive and complete with very few suggestions for changes.
Thank you.
So much. A lot of work. I want to acknowledge that, being that you're a new finance director to us, and that it went as smoothly and as well as it did with real good information for all of us.
Thank you very much. We do have a really good team in the finance department too, and that's as the auditor said when he came in, we were ready for them and prepared, and it's not just me. So thank you.
It's your leadership. So with that,
Mayor, you took my glory there. I was going to say it with great pleasure.
I would recommend that.
I recommend it with great thanks. Approval of the annual financial reports. I'll second.
It's been moved by Vice Mayor Hunsetter and seconded by Councilmember O'Neill to approve the annual financial reports as presented gratefully and enthusiastically. So if there's no comments on the motion, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Thank you. Okay, on to the next item 9, possible vote to enter into executive session. We have 3 items on executive session: Verde Canyon Railroad land swap, Centerville Road property acquisition, and consideration of a mutual agreement to condemn 751 Calle Medina Clark in center for the Centerville Road extension. Is there a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Been moved by, is there a second?
A second. Oh, she got it.
Okay. There's a motion by Councilmember Babbitt Pierce and seconded by Councilmember Jones to go into executive session. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? We're now in executive session. Everybody, you can stay here. We're going to leave the room. Oh, well, frickin' get that one.
14.
Okay, please note that we are back into regular session. Are we on for recording? Okay. Resumption of the meeting at 5:36 p.m. We have 3 items on item number 9. The first one is Verde Canyon Railroad land swap. Just to note for the record that we were updated on the progress of the land swap. On item B, the Centerville Road property extension. Again, we were just updated on the Centerville Road properties that are being considered for acquisition. Item C, consideration of mutual agreement to condemn 751 Calle Medina, Clarkdale, Arizona for the Centerville Road extension. I believe we have a motion.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I move that we, as discussed in executive session, sign the agreement to mutually voluntarily condemn 351 Calle Medina, Clarkdale, Arizona for the Centerville Road extension.
Actually, I think that's correction 751.
751. And direct town attorney to file the.
And direct the town attorney to file the voluntary mutual agreement for condemnation.
I'll second.
We have a motion that's been moved by Councilmember Babbitt Pierce and seconded by Councilmember O'Neill regarding the voluntary mutual condemnation agreement for 751 Calle Medina, Clarkdale, Arizona for the Centerville Road extension and direct the town attorney to file a voluntary mutual condemnation action. All those, any comments on that? Hearing none, those all in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Thank you very much. Future agenda items. Are there any future agenda items we wish to bring up at this time? My gosh, it's all very quiet. Thank you all, first of all, before we adjourn, for a long meeting, a lot of good information. We've moved some projects forward. That's huge. And we see where we go, the next steps. And with that, if there's no further items and no objection to adjourning, seeing none, the meeting is adjourned at 5:39 p.m. Thank you all very much. Good job. Good job.
Meeting, guys.